Welcome back to Solomon's Porch with your host, Jason.
And Sean?
And Sean.
And Sean.
Are you reading it and confused about what it says?
I'm confused. Is
Sure.
he here?
It's all right. I've realized I didn't go back to doing podcast. Like, I used to say Solomon's Porch podcast, then I stopped because we were on radio. Then I started back because we weren't on radio anymore. No, I don't say it anymore. I feel like I'm back and forth with the whole podcast thing. I forget. I'm sorry to all the podcast listeners. I feel like I'm leaving you out when I don't say Solomon's Porch podcast. Even on video.
Porch Productions podcast video IALMNOP.
There you go. Hey, we just joined the. Never mind.
Yeah.
So it seems like lately there's been a lot of talk of Disney losing some more specifically Christian following. A lot of people that seem to be somewhat boycotting it, talking. I mean, and there's been a long history of people boycotting Disney. As a guy I used to work with, he showed me a video of a lot of supposed hidden things in Disney. Men and women genitalia, things like that they would sneak into the animations. I guess trying to brainwash kids. I never noticed it, and honestly, the stuff I was seeing blatantly was way more powerful than things Disney maybe would have sleeping in there.
Yeah, I didn't need Disney for that. I had my old man's porno collection for that stuff.
We had a whole lot of stuff that Disney didn't need to sneak it in. But I will say, even like now, so Disney is my worst stock that I've ever purchased. I put $25 in it, and I'm down $8.43. In the past year, they've gone from $185 a share, and right now they're down to $119-ish, $115, and they just seem to be dropping. So if it's a boycott, it seems to be working.
It must be a boy.
I don't know if I don't know if it could be girl caught. I don't know.
I don't know.
But as a Christian,
it's just cotting.
Okay. As a Christian, naturally, this is a Christian podcast.
They caught.
We don't, generous. But should we boycott Disney? What is there anything? Is there a line that we put down in the sand? Here lately, I think the CEO or whoever of Disney was like, "Hey, look, we have a very specific agenda we're going to put in our stuff." That's just the way it is.
Yeah. So what really I think has spurned all this is that there was a leaked video of a conference call amongst a lot of Disney execs, and we have one Disney exec just like blatantly saying, I've got this secret gay agenda that's not so secret. I'm putting it all in here and there and there and there and there. And, and we've known that there's, homosexual, lesbian, and definitely transgender, queer folk, whatever terms you want to use, that are definitely within Disney, that are producing a lot of the stuff that goes on, and we've seen little bits here and there, from Star Wars to even the live action Beauty and the Beast. That there's little bits of stuff here and there. But the problem that I think that we're having right now is that they're being far more geared toward putting out material for children.
Right.
So even if you have your parental controls on, your kids are still going to get this agendaed material put out to them. In case you haven't already looked, that there is available it's a Pixar short about a gay guy coming out to his parents. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it's quite endearing, it's very sweet and whatever, but it is definitely an animation, and it's very accessible by children. So whether or not that gets your goat, if that's your line in the sand or whatever, I don't know. But before we get too deep into this, I would like to make sure that we're utilizing terms that are most appropriate here. So let me first start off with me, because I love words and I love definitions and etymology and stuff. So boycott. All right, so to withdraw from commercial or social relations could be a form of punishment or protest. To refuse to buy or handle, refuse to cooperate or participate in. So boycott is more of a group or organizational kind of, we are no longer supporting. Okay, as opposed to, say, like an individual. A ban is going to be more of a official, legal kind of institution, an institution that will prevent something from continuing on. So, our government can ban books that have hate speech in them. Okay. But as Christians, we aren't banning anything. We can't ban anything.
Right.
Now, as Christians individually, or even loosely just saying Christians should boycott, not necessarily. However, you can have, 4HC decide that they're going to ban, I don't know, whatever 4HC would ban. I don't know what 4HC does. So anyway, whatever organization, I couldn't think of any Christian organization. The Southern Baptists decide that they're going to boycott. Okay, 4HC they do the Am I getting confused with something?
4-H.
4-H.
The after school program thing.
Yeah, maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah.
They're going to change the name of that soon. That's too
narrow. You can't do. Yeah.
Yeah. The club.
The club. Yeah, because you can't even say children anymore, right? Because you might identify as a child or not. So anyhow, so typically speaking, I would say that boycotts maybe still not even appropriate from an individual perspective, as much as maybe to say that we've chosen not to support something. So, yes, to be PC with my own terminology. Yes. I'm indoctrinating you.
Just don't be POC.
Or OPP. So, the point here is this. If we look historically at Disney and Christian groups, so there's a mother's group that is definitely specifically boycotting Disney because of gay content, or not even gay content. What was it? It was back in the 90s, and it was just that they were spending money in support of gay and homosexual agendas. So it wasn't even that Disney was incorporating anything yet, but just that they were supporting those groups, much the same way as people will call for boycotts against organizations will call for boycotts against Starbucks and Target because they say Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas. Okay,
I remember that.
Same idea here. So the problem is this: is that boycotts in general don't really work. So I'm going to take a little bit from an article that our brothers and sisters, yes, brothers and sisters, gender specific here, over at Relevant Magazine. They've got a great article about why boycotting Disney doesn't work, and in there we're talking about they're talking about how really what ends up happening is that it becomes more of a cultural grandstanding session. So whatever organization it is that's trying to engage society into a boycott becomes about them and their attention, as opposed to actually affecting change. Now, let me steer just a little bit off course here, if you will. So imagine we've talked about the bullhorn guy on the street corner yelling and screaming, hellfire, damnation, everybody's going to hell if you don't accept Jesus Christ. The kingdom of heaven is at hand, and right?
Don't talk about John the Baptist like that.
How effective is that guy versus the guy that witnesses to his friends and family, that just goes through their relationships to be able to affect change? How effective is he versus the guy out on the street corner, right? So this is that same sort of scenario. So Relevant is basically saying is that the guys with the bullhorns are not going to gain any traction. They're not going to affect any change. In fact, what we usually end up seeing as a result of this is the exact opposite happening. Is that actually those folks that are for that agenda are going to dig in even deeper just to spite you, as opposed to be willing to listen to what it is that you have to say. So in their article, they actually say, we actually encourage engagement. Have a conversation. And they even bring up that Paul in the book of Acts does exactly the same thing in Athens. So, we're talking about what is it that is going to ultimately make an impact. Should you let your kids watch it? No, of course not. Duh, right? So you need to make sure that as responsible parents that you are overseeing what it is, that the kind of content and entertainment that your children are consuming. If you're not, that's on you, bro. I mean, honestly, there is so much stuff out there that if you're not keeping track of it, I'm sorry, it is on you. It's no longer that only the risque stuff comes on after midnight, or only the slightly scary stuff on TV comes on after 9 p.m. anymore. It's not like that. It's all the time. So if you're not out there checking on it, that's on you. You really need to be diligent. Now, whether or not we think that Disney should uphold our values and virtues, that's a whole nother discussion. And certainly, we as Christians can say, well, I'm not going to put my money into something that doesn't uphold my values and morals. Good, go for it. Absolutely. I agree. I think that if you feel that you don't want to put your money into something that is going so against everything that you believe and that you feel, do so. You have that absolute right. You telling them what they should be doing is no different than them telling you what you should be doing. Oh. Right? I mean,
Well, they've been telling the church to be taxed for many years.
well, that aside. So we now have this bill that DeSantis has got going on now about children and indoctrinating them into an LGBTQ kind of agenda, and it being against that. And now it seems as though, if I've understood correctly, that Disney is no longer going to be getting all their breaks that they were getting for being in the state of Florida because of their content.
Right.
So we may actually just see some natural backpedaling anyway, because, I mean, you think about it, if they've got to start paying taxes on their land alone, I mean, the state of Florida would make bank, right?
Yeah.
They can't afford to do that. So who knows? Maybe the screws are turning on them anyway. But at the same time, as much as I don't want them doing thought control on me, I'm not going to do it on them either. That's my perspective. Now, my daughter's 18, so I'm not really concerned so much about the content that she consumes at this point in time. If I haven't done my job, shame on me. But she's an adult. She can choose what it is that she watches, what she consumes, and how she thinks, and what she does with it all. And we still have plenty of conversations about all that stuff too, by the way. But at the same time, if she chooses to support Disney Plus because she likes the content that she is getting off of there, not necessarily all of it, but she likes what she's getting, that's up to her. Let her do that. If she feels as though that she doesn't want her favorite three little girls to accidentally consume some of that content, and so she's going to refuse to support them, totally on her. Go for it. I think that she should follow whatever it is that she feels led to be able to do. So should we as Christians not support Disney? Honestly, I don't know that it's going to make a difference. Should we engage with people to have conversations about what kind of stuff that corporations should be including in their material for age appropriateness? Look, you probably are a little too young, Jason, to remember Joe Camel. Do you remember Joe Camel?
Very, very vaguely.
Okay, so Camel Cigarettes had this great cartoon, Camel. Man, my stepdad had been a long-time Camel Cigarettes guy anyway. So when they came out with Joe Camel, man, he got all the merch that he could possibly get his hands on. Never mind the fact that he definitely smoked enough cigarette packs to be able to send in those little blue seals that they put on the top, right? To be able to get as much of that garbage as he could. As a kid, I thought it was cool. I just thought he looked cool. In fact, his name is Joe Cool. So of course it's cool, right? What ends up happening? Society rebels and says, you can't put that stuff out there. You are advertising to children. You are encouraging children to smoke cigarettes. That is morally wrong. And they stopped it. They had to kill the camel. They had to kill Joe, man. I can't believe they killed Joe. They killed him.
It's okay, Sean. It's okay.
But they did it for the children because they didn't want to corrupt the children. Oh my goodness, what a noble thing to do. But it's okay to let them know that you can be any gender that you want to. Because if you don't, then that will hurt the children that do feel like that they are... Oh my gosh, I'm already confused. Maybe I should just stop using gender pronouns. I'm sorry. Obviously, I've had something to say about this. So, do you have any thoughts, my friend?
Well, I think going back to when you're looking at their stock dropping, whether that's people pulling subscriptions from Disney Plus, people not going to the theme parks, or whatever it may be, I think it shows that put your money where your mouth is. If you here's one thing though, if you own Disney stock, then you can vote on elections. So I've gotten so many like Apple, Lennar, Amazon, and Disney are 4 stocks that I own. Like Apple and Lennar have had like voting coming up. So even if you own $5 of stock, you can vote in the elections for the board. And every year they have elections. So that's one thing to think about. Like if you that's the best way you get your voice heard is either you don't give them the like even if you just bought $5 of stock on Cash App, very easy to do.
Sure. And
you don't support any of their other content, at least you get a vote without giving them your money per se, because $5.
$5 to vote.
And then you're one of however many people that own stock at Disney. So there's a vote there. Like if you like some of their stuff and you don't like some of their other stuff, like if you want them to keep doing Star Wars and Marvel stuff, but you don't want them to do particularly agendaed stuff, then you can vote on those who, at least with leaked footage, who's wanting to do what. So that is an option. Another option is don't buy any of their content. You can start a podcast and talk about why you don't support them. All sorts of stuff like that. You can make songs against Disney if you want to. There's all sorts of things you can do. I think, whenever I think of boycott, I just think of, just a whole bunch of people just say, hey, we're going to stop doing this. And so like there's like mom, I've seen it like there's like a really big mom group that have boycotted certain things. And some boycotts actually do work. Like I actually looked up the history of successful boycotts on Ethical Consumer, and there's a list of certain boycotts in the history of our society, at least in the past 10 years here, of some boycotts that worked. I know there was a show on MTV that was way too raunchy to be out there for teens, and there was a huge group, like a mom militia, in a sense, that boycotted it, and boom, it got canceled. They lost all their sponsors. The show got dropped. Right. So, but when you're talking about one show on one network, that's different from a corporation like Disney.
And when it's so broad spectrum of an agenda.
Yeah, it really is. So, like, it would take a lot of work. Like, you can dedicate yourself. You can form groups that will openly protest and all those things. I think protests are going to be met with protests. I don't know how well they do. But essentially, like Sean said, I kind of feel the same way about political campaigns. Like, you're not going to influence people in their political views, political campaigns on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram, whatever. It's got to be a conversation.
Right.
You got to talk to them, explain why you think XYZ is wrong, bad. If you're a Christian, what's the biblical view of it? If you're talking to a Christian, more so the biblical view on it. Because maybe they just don't know. Maybe they've gotten progressive Christianity infused into their blood veins. Like, because a lot of that part of the church, whether you consider progressive Christianity part of the church or not, they're all for it. They're all for what Disney's doing. So, you got to understand where people are coming from, their perspectives. If you don't know where they're coming from, you're not going to be able to have a good conversation with them. So I do think conversations do help. Not giving them money also helps too. That also helps. So yeah, I mean, there's been tons of companies in the history, big companies like Target and Starbucks and all these different companies that over time have gotten, quote unquote boycotted against, and they're still around. So Disney's bigger than almost all of them.
I think it's interesting though that Disney has blocked, for viewers under the age of 7, has blocked certain movies due to racist content. So Peter Pan, Dumbo, and the Aristocats.
They block those based on racism?
Racist content, yeah.
Huh, I didn't know that.
So, like, in the Aristocats, there's a cat with chopsticks playing chopsticks on the piano. Clearly very Asian cat, but also is a little stereotyped. I guess is probably the best way to be able to put it. Excuse me. And so subsequently ends up sort of making fun of Asian folks. Right. And so they actually block these movies if you're under the age of 7.
Huh. Interesting. Well, I'll say this. They make fun of all sorts of people on Disney. I mean...
Well, I'm wondering when they're going to block Star Wars Episode 1, because it's very racist. So just saying. Jar Jar Binks.
I don't know what you're talking about. All right, well, that's it for the show. I think we've kind of got our point across.
Help shape society. Be a part of it.
There you go. Be the change that you want to see.
Dialogue. Don't yell and scream. Don't point fingers. Have a conversation with somebody.
Yeah, and don't be mad. And here's... I will say this. If you are 100% anti-Disney for whatever respectable reason that you have, and someone else is not, don't degrade them.
Be respectful.
Don't degrade them. Like, I know plenty, because here's the thing. I know lots of conservative Christians. I know lots of liberal. They would never call themselves liberal Christians, but I know lots of liberal Christians.
Yeah.
Friends with both. And I know just as many conservative Christians that don't believe in boycotting Disney as I do that do want to boycott Disney. And they've given kind of similar reasons to what Relevant said in their post online. And so it's like it's all over the place. So like Pastor Alan Peacock says, my pastor says, you do you, boo. Do whatever you feel like you got to do.
Boo.
Boo. Yeah, yeah. That's kind of scary, but yeah, man. So that's it. We're gonna wrap this up with a nice, tiny, shiny bow. We do want to thank our supporters of the show, our Patreon supporters, Sam Blackwell, Jason Motley, Purely Bachelorette. Go check out purelybachelorette.com. Got some nice, clean, quality party gifts for bachelorette parties, so go check that out. Also, again, True Strength Apparel and Chris Nunn with his new track, Hear Me Now. Might be a good phrase to use if you're trying to boycott Disney. Like, hear me now. There you go.
Or talk about me later.
What are we ending off with, Sean?
We're going to end with a YouTube cover of I Will Follow, covered by MXPX.
That was terrible, man. All right, y'all. We'll see you next time. Always remember, Jesus loves you way more than we ever could.
Shalom.